Okay. Are we going?
Yeah, we're going, yeah.
Okay, cool.
Taking a monkey?
The Diagonal Monkey Podcast. Hello, my name is Mark Ranger, and welcome to the second episode of the Diagonal Monkey Podcast, where each week I chat to different musicians and bands. In this episode, I talked to Nick Di Salvo of Psychedelic heavy rock trio Elder, who were in Leicester as part of their extensive European tour. Check it out. I just wanted to start by talking about how the band got together.
Well, we're actually all childhood friends, and we've been playing music since we were in high school together in different bands. And Jack, our bassist, and I were friends since elementary school, so I guess grammar school, and we took guitar lessons together for a very brief period, and just we're always interested in music, us three as friends. Played in various bands just growing up, and eventually we got more interested in heavy metal and stoner stuff and doom metal, and we started Elder as kind of a really doomy, sludgy band back in maybe 2006 or 2007, and recorded the short demo before getting together for our full-length album. And we never really thought we'd continue keeping on for as long as we have, because it's always just been, hey, let's play some music, and it got serious all of a sudden.
Because you started quite young, so at what point did you realise you were going to be doing something serious? Because loads of people start bands when they're young.
Well, we recorded a full-length album just in my basement at the time with a friend who brought over some mixing equipment, and we just went at it. And I sent it around to some people to review it just as a demo, really. I sent it to the now defunct stonerrock.com, and the editor, or the guy who picked it up for review, liked it and passed it on to Meteor City Records, which is they used to be affiliated with stonerrock.com, and Dan and Melanie, the owners, they really liked it, and they asked us if we'd want to put it out. And so that was the first point where, we thought, oh shit, we recorded an album really just for our own fun, and these people liked it and they want to put it out. We could be onto something. And once you have a published piece of music, the rest is sort of accumulation. And if you've got one release, you can put out another, and then other people might take notice.
And you've been playing for a while when that came about?
Yeah, maybe 2 years at that point. Yeah, we recorded the album after maybe took a year to write or something, and we were just finishing up high school at that time, recorded it right as we left, and then it came out sometime the following year when we were all just entering university.
So I was going to ask about the gaps between the albums. Mm-hmm. What was the reason for that? Just sort of life? Or?
Yeah, mostly life. It takes a long time to write a song for us too. That's part of it. It's a seemingly endless process of editing and revising. I write most of the music for the bands, and I'm sort of always coming up with ideas and recording them, but I'm very neurotic almost about what makes the cut and what doesn't. So that's one thing. And the other is definitely life. Like I said, we went to university. I was living in Germany for 3 of the past 6 years too, where not consecutively, but where I'd go, for some reason studying or teaching English. I was there for a year too. And that obviously puts a damper on any sort of band activity. So there's that. There's can't practice together. But I think mostly it's just a combination of laziness in writing, or sometimes you're not always inspired. I don't know how a lot of bands just turn out an album after album.
So if you were away and you couldn't practice together, was there ever a point that you thought maybe we won't do this, or was it just a case of you knew you were always going back to it?
There was never really a point where I thought we're not going to do this because of distance. We've been friends for so long, it's almost like the band and the friendship are ingrained in each other. I think as long as we're friends, we're probably going to have some sort of musical enterprise. And even if we didn't play for years, I don't think we're going to dissolve the band just because, we're not going to dissolve our friendships. It's just kind of, they've grown together in a weird way.
It's probably just natural, but it's become more refined on this new album, isn't it? I'd say it's more prog. Mm-hmm. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Is that fair to say? Yeah,
definitely.
Was there a different influence on the album? Was it just you got better at what you want to express? Or?
Yeah, I think, we've been finding our voice. I think with Lore, we really found sort of our own style within the genre, and we were moving towards it with Dead Roots during our second full length. I think the reason for that is just it's a combination of new musical influences and new life experiences and our ideas about what we want to do as musicians and with music. And bands. Prog is the big influence on this album because we all picked up a lot of prog rock records, I think, in recent years and started listening to them really heavily. The other guys in the band, Matt and Jack, have actually been influencing me with their prog rock taste. I was never big into it until, something clicked a couple years ago finally for me.
Anything in particular?
Yeah, Yes, Gentle Giant, Genesis, King Crimson, the big names. And then there's some newer bands, Anecdoten is a band from Sweden who I really like. They've really Mellotron heavy stuff, really melancholic. But also, we don't really see ourselves as a band that conforms to any particular genre, or we may belong in a community because of our friendships and the bands we play with a lot of times, but we're not a stoner rock band or a doom band. I don't think we don't necessarily associate with any of those tags. We want to play music and rock music, and I think we're just going to keep playing whatever sounds right at that particular moment. Album is going to be even further out and even more different. At least that's our plan. I see it maybe staying on the same level of complexity because I still like it at the core to be, a rock outfit.
So you want to keep it sort of the three-piece? Yeah, three-piece. We've
experimented with, adding other musicians, but it always ends up feeling a little bit too bloated, and or something gets muddled in the sound. So I want everything to be communicable with three people live for sure. The ideas I have, they definitely moving along the same path that Laura set out, but always a little bit more experimental. And it's hard to tell just now in the beginning stages of writing 2 new songs, and in my experience by the end of an album actually being written and recorded, it sounds very different than the beginning stages of our songwriting is probably going to be.
So you said you write most of the stuff to begin with.
Yeah.
When you bring it to the band, is that when it changes? Do they throw in ideas?
Yeah, definitely. They throw in ideas, but usually ends up that I'll end up writing kind of the whole song, and they're acting as editors. I don't know about this part, or this is a strange melody. Maybe we can tweak it. And then, of course, by the time we're recording or playing it live, they're their own style. And, Jack's bass playing as opposed to mine, or Matt's drumming as opposed to mine is very different, and that gives it a different flavor. So, and also just sometimes I might wake up in the middle of the night and think that part in this song, no, that's not right. I got to change it, or I have an idea. I could put this there instead.
Is there anything that's not musical that's influenced the album?
Yeah, well, for me, it's certainly traveling, and that goes hand in hand with playing music because we're touring a lot. You're seeing a lot of different new countries and places and meeting a lot of people, and you may get inspired by something you saw, and you might get inspired by the cathedral you saw in Leicester, England. You might get inspired by some crazy landscapes in southern Spain or something. Unfortunately, I'm not reading as much as I was in the days of university, but there are certain books that have had a major influence on this is an interesting life topic or an interesting theme. How can I explore it musically? How can I explore it lyrically? And make those two fit together.
And you like the lyrics too?
Yeah.
What sort of things do you gravitate toward?
Well, I like lyrics, or I like writing lyrics that are sort of, maybe accessible to everyone. I'm sort of repulsed by this really narcissistic trend in pop music, where it's all about the personal ego. It's all about I love you and you love me, or baby you hurt me, or whatever the hell it's about. And I like exploring, sort of life themes, important things like the lyrics for Dead Root Stirring were really influenced by War and Peace by Tolstoy, which is actually a book I had to read for university at the time, but that book deals with almost every single topic that a human being might go through on your journey, like powerlessness in the face of death, or what's the point of living with the knowledge of your mortality, and how do you cope with these things. And so thinking about those and having my own personal dialogue with that was really informative to the lyrics. And Laura kind of follows on the same basic topics, I guess. I think a lot about environmental problems and man's evolution throughout time and how we become what we become. I guess in some ways I feel a little bit downtrodden growing up in our generation, where we hear so much about climate change and global problems. I think a lot about that too, and put that in some of the lyrics, even though it's maybe not very obvious.
I was going to talk about touring now, because it's a pretty big tour you took on. How do you find touring in Europe?
We love it.
You love it?
Yeah, absolutely love it. Yeah, and touring in Europe is it's great because you see a lot of different countries in a relatively short span of time, and you get treated really well as a musician, much better than you do in the States. So it's sort of like a guaranteed nice experience, no matter what. We played in Barcelona not too long ago that happened to be on the night of some sort of holiday, and so we were playing actually just like a couple blocks down from the beach, and ended up after the show convincing our driver to take us down to the beach for a little while. And so like everyone in the city seemed to be like on this beach just setting off fireworks and drinking and partying and going crazy, and those are the sort of things where you realize like, wow, Europe just seems so much more free. You can live life a little bit easier here, have a little bit more fun. I love being in Europe just because I'm sort of like a Europhile, and the other guys are, I think, much like me in that. We're fascinated by all the historical sites, and that coupled with the fact that you have consistently good shows and really treated well, and at the end of the tour you go home with great memories and maybe a little cash to get to the next one too. So
you were at Hellfest. With one day?
Yeah.
How was that?
That was kind of crazy. It was definitely the most crowded festival I've ever seen, which I know in the European festival circuit is not even the biggest, but
it's got a good reputation as a well-organized festival.
It was incredibly well-organized. Yeah, we were really, really impressed by sort of how much work goes into staging the whole thing too. If you walk around just the festival area, there's a lot to see and a lot to do, even if you're not, watching a band. There's all sorts of crazy props and like a weird Hellfest tree and these Mad Max towers spouting off flames in the distance. It's really cool. So I'm glad we got to see that.
The music industry has changed a lot with the internet and people can self-releasing albums and things like that, and the record labels, they're all less relevant. Would you say so?
I would say so, absolutely.
Because you've done the first two albums with that same label, and then you've done the new album on Armageddon, which is basically the record store from where you live.
Exactly, yeah.
Right, yeah. Mm-hmm. So are you glad that you've gone independent?
Yeah. And we've had opportunities to work with bigger labels, and they come up, but we made a conscious decision to kind of say fuck the record industry, and they're really great smaller labels putting out awesome releases. I think we still have a very non-commercial independent stance, and we want to assert that. And also the age we live in now, I don't think the record label is completely extinct or completely irrelevant, but it definitely has diminished power. Self-promotion and the internet and other tools of getting your music out there have been immensely helpful. So yeah, we work with Armageddon Shop. We also work with Stickman Records in Germany, another very well-respected small independent label run by a man and a woman, and that's the whole thing. We like working with people who we know, and they're both Armageddon Shop guys, and Stickman, they're personal friends of ours. Armageddon, quite close friends actually for years. So there's a lot of fun also investing in your own scene, investing in not to try and we scratch each other's backs or something like that, but just because it's the scene that we play in a lot, we want to make sure that grows, and that way give back to help them grow their label, and they keep putting out our releases and stuff.
Do you try and manage as much as you can yourself? You manage everything yourself?
No, well, definitely there's some responsibilities that need to be handed off. We have booking agents now, luckily. It's near impossible to get what you need to sustain as a touring musician without someone with the logistics. I could never book in Europe, for example, because I don't have the connections. We've self-booked tours in the States for a couple of years, but now we're also lucky to have once again another good friend of ours who just happened to take up a job at a larger booking agency in the States for heavy music. He helped us get onto that roster, so he's working with us or for us, if you will. Yeah, you can't. There's some parts where it makes sense to work with other outlets and work with professionals, but I think the record label and the record industry, people who just want to purely take your money, take your name, and take away your publishing rights, that's the people you have to look out for. They're I think the main offender in the music game.
The reality of musicians nowadays is, especially when it's independent, is that a lot of musicians have to keep a regular job at the same time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we all still work day jobs.
How does it work around a schedule like this? Because obviously you book it off for 2 months, don't you?
Yeah, you kind of have to base your job search on an employment that's going to be flexible with that. So it's like you have to work in food service, or I tried freelancing for a little while. I now work actually at Armageddon Shop, so that obviously works out very well. Yeah. You know, Jack also does freelance work in the field of like audio and different stuff. So Matt is working at a farm at the moment. So I think the ultimate goal for me is to find some sort of meaningful employment that's not despicable in the meantime when you're not touring. I mean, Armageddon's a super cool place to be. So I think I'm lucky, but a lot of people definitely still work in the music industry in some other way. You know, Tony from Moss Generator, he's got his own studio, and that's sort of obviously built up over the years, but that's amazing. I think perfect. You just get to go home and write music and produce records and stuff. Yeah.
What's the plan next?
Back to writing is the main plan, I think. I definitely want to. We've been hitting the road, you know, pretty much ever since Lore came out steadily. And we'll have done like 5 months of touring by the time this whole European endeavor is over. We're going to Australia in October, which this still hasn't been announced actually, so maybe I'm not allowed to say this officially. But it's gonna be a tour. It's gonna be not very long. I think like 5 shows in total with Earthless. We're supporting them. After that, you know, I'd really love to sit tight, and I've got a lot of ideas, but it's, you know, when you're drinking every night on tour, your brain isn't really in a constructive state to write new music, and you're in a cramped band. So I want to go home. I want to just let new stuff, you know, formulate.
Is it always going to be about the band, or do you want to expand into other areas like musically, like producing things like that? Or?
Yeah, I want to. I'm still struggling figuring out what that other thing might be. You know, I've got other interests. I like languages and literatures, and I've done work translating German to English before. You know, some books and some published stuff, and that's a field that I might actually try and get into, get some certification or something. But becoming a producer, engineer, something like that is also, you know, a dream job for me. Just another thing that requires sitting tight for long enough to get an education or get, you know, some sort of internship to learn those skills.
Okay. Well, thanks for talking to me.
Absolutely.
Nice to meet you.
Cool. Nice to meet you too.
Thanks for listening. Elder's latest album, Lore, is out now via Armageddon Records in the US and Stickman Records in Europe. Don't forget you can follow the Diagonal Monkey podcast on Facebook and Twitter at diagonal_monkey, and you can also subscribe to the podcast on iTunes or follow it on SoundCloud. See you soon.
Diagonal Monkey.
Fuck the record industry.